Welcome back, everyone, to the FAA TFM-AID Challenge Forum. Our afternoon presentations kick off today with Brigham Young University and their project MOA.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Garrett Johns, team lead, and I'm joined by my team members here on the stage, Claire McGregor, Jackson Ringer, and Adam Shumway. And our team advisor is Seth Christensen. Now, as was said earlier this morning, any good thing needs an acronym, and so our project name, Project MOA, was something that we wanted to create in order to guide our project principles. Now, as in the industry, MOA stands for Military Operated Airspace. For our project, it does not, but Project MOA stands for Management of Airspace, and it's also a callback to the extinct prehistoric MOA bird. And this callback reflects some of the goals that we have with our project. Firstly, we wanted to be able to bring the systems up to modern day standards and replace the current systems in use that will one day be extinct. We also wanted to maximize efficiency, minimize demand, and keep these flights in the air safely. And lastly, we wanted to be able to help traffic management coordinators keep the flocks of planes going to where they need to go as safely as possible. For our design, we had a few different focuses in mind that would help us improve the user experience. We wanted to bring it up to modern day standards and modern conventions and style and design to help both veteran and rookie users approach the software with ease. We saw a lot of different features and programs spread out across different windows and workspaces that made it confusing for the user. The main goal was to consolidate all these features into a single program. Contextual information is really key to create a well-timed decision and well-informed decision. So throughout our design, we wanted to surface helpful information in helpful ways. And lastly, we know with all the information being thrown at the user, it can become really overwhelming and confusing in moments of stress. So we aimed to minimize this distraction throughout the software to streamline their workflow and make sure that they can get the job done easily.
So understanding the problems for this project is something that took a lot of work. Great UX design requires great research and great understanding of the user being designed for. So in this case, we wanted to understand and empathize with traffic managers as well as possible. We started with combing through hundreds of pages of documentation provided by the FAA and organized our notes. We flow charted traffic manager workflows and noted important jobs to be done. And then following that, we started to interview individuals involved in the traffic management industry. Specifically, we met with TRACON managers, dispatchers, and traffic management coordinators. And with them, we verified our research and gathered their insights. Following that, we visited 3 facilities local to us. We visited a local airport control tower, the Salt Lake TRACON, and the ZLC Center. So following all this work, we worked very diligently. It took a lot of time, but we felt extremely confident that we had great knowledge to help us come up with the best possible final solutions for this project. So to elaborate a little bit on our interview process, we mainly focused these interviews on 3 important questions. They were, what would you improve about the current system? How does communication function? And what causes stress in the day-to-day functions? And by asking these questions and spending a lot of time talking to traffic managers, we were able to compile all our insights, all the things that they shared, to really craft a distinct persona that we had in mind as we came up with our final solutions. And we call this persona Gene. So Gene is an experienced traffic manager at the command center in Washington, D.C. She's been working there for over 10 years, and so she has a lot of experience with the traffic flow management system, but a few frustrations. Specifically, she wants more workspace customization functionalities. So she finds the system pretty rigid. She'd like to better organize what she does, monitoring based on flight, and she'd also like the option to toggle between light and dark modes. She also wants more decision support tools to help her make better decisions. So she's very experienced and knows what she's doing a lot of the time, but would like the system to provide some insight on if what she's doing is actually the best possible solution. She's also noticed that she's trained a lot of up-and-coming traffic managers. Because of the lack of decision support tools and feedback from the system, a newcomer using the system for the first time, there's a huge learning curve, and it takes them a while to understand what they're doing before they can effectively contribute. Lastly, she wants more program flexibility. She wants to fit all her work possibly on one monitor and not have to jump between the many different programs she currently has to use. So with all this insight and with this key persona in mind, here are some more concrete solutions that we came up with for more specific problems.
One of Jean's frustrations is the lack of communication integration in the current system. She finds the system slow and difficult to navigate as information is disorganized and alerts are hard to find. The system requires manual input to send messages and resorts to phone calls for small matters that can be easily solved. Overall, the system is inefficient and tedious. To accommodate Jean's frustrations, we have integrated communication into a multifunctional home screen. This home screen is divided into 3 panels. The left panel houses messages, initiative alteration requests, and unread advisories. The middle panel houses action lists for viewing daily tasks, and the advisory panel on the right houses traffic management issues and active initiatives. All information is accessible, so everything can be monitored at all times.
Jean is perfectly capable of doing everything she needs to do, all the tasks, with the current system. However, in her current workflow, she often has to make very high impact decisions, and these can be pretty stressful for her. So some examples of these might be deciding which areas to monitor for high demand or where demand exceeds capacity, also prioritizing one high demand area over another. And then furthermore, once she's found such an area, she has to decide what traffic management initiatives to implement in order to mitigate the problem. So our solution provides Jean with decision support tools so that it's less stressful for her and she doesn't have to, have all the weight of high impact decisions on herself. So what does this look like? Let's say Jean's coming into work in the morning. She just got in. The first thing she'll see is on a map view like this, as you can see on the eastern coast of Florida, down at the bottom of the screen to the right there, there's an alert and it's red, so it draws her eyes to that. And so that way she knows automatically that's where high demand is, and she doesn't have to make her own decision. It tells her. Likewise, as you can see below the map, there's a time scrubber. So once she's, maybe selected some traffic management initiatives from a playbook, she can plug them into there and scrub through time to see how the future might play out, if they were in effect. And this information would all come from maybe a NAS monitor, or a flight schedule monitor, but it's all shown on the map just to aid her in decision support. And what if Jean wants to create her own, her own space so that she can have personalized decision support tools? We have a space creation tool so that Jean, if she needs to, can decide what she's seeing on the screen or what she's not seeing. So for example, let's say she pinpoints a high demand area in the ZLC. She can put to the right a big map of the ZLC. To the left, she can put a flight schedule monitor of maybe the Salt Lake City airport.
Currently in the software, we found a lot of different features and programs are spread out across different windows and workspaces. Jean has to constantly switch between these in order to effectively see all the information that she needs to know. Additionally, resources aren't easily accessible for her. The playbook is available online as a PDF and it can be printed out, but this long document doesn't lend itself to being easily navigated through. Advisories from the command center are posted through NTML, but this long text format isn't easily scannable to get an idea of what's going on across the NAS. And we do have the NAS status website shown above, but Jean has to go out of her way to go online to view all of this information. We hope to be able to tackle this problem by implementing a unified style and theme in our software, bringing all these features together. By bringing all of these features with a cohesive coat of paint, Jean doesn't have to go searching across 5 different windows to see all the information that she needs. We used simplified colors and also implemented a light and dark mode for Jean's preference. Instead of having to go to a separate document, the playbook surfaces alongside the map, so she can see recommendations for reroutes or traffic management initiatives right in line with the weather events that are happening. Advisories from the command center are shown on the home screen, so she doesn't have to go far. And while she's building a traffic management initiative, bar graphs showing data of the corresponding region or a NAS monitor can also appear to help inform her of the decision that she's making. We hope that by bringing all these features together into a single program, she's spending less time searching around and more time in her workflow, which has been streamlined thanks to this unified style.
So within the current system, Jean finds many visual elements and functions that kind of clutter up her workspace and get in the way of the actual important information she needs in the tasks that she needs to be completing. So we can consider these elements, these visual elements, this clutter, we can consider it noise. And the important information that she needs, we can call signals. So what we're saying here is that the current system has an imbalanced signal to noise ratio. And we wanted to find a way to balance this out and make Jean, allow Jean to more easily get to the information that she needs. So here are just some examples of clutter within the current system when it comes to a box for creating a flow evaluation area or the bar graph within the current system. So to fix this, we came up with 2 solutions. Our first is a more purposeful use of color. So the current system, as shown before with the bar graph, uses a little too much color, and much of it is clouding the signal and diluting the meaning of the actually important color. So in talking to traffic managers, we realized that they're mainly primarily concerned with only things that are over capacity in the bar graph. So we highlighted the things that are over capacity right here on the graph on the bottom right, and we grayed out, made inactive any other information. We also used purple as a color to represent modeling on the map in the timeline, and that's consistent throughout our system. Our other solution that we've talked about a little bit before are focus spaces. So spaces can be used to provide an organized view of situations in the NAS. So up there in the top left, Jean can create a tab that serves as a space to see multiple views or details of a situation that she's concerned about. So we realize that traffic managers have a lot of different situations that they're monitoring throughout the day. So this serves as a way to organize these situations, and they can tab between these as they go throughout their day in their workflow.
Jean would also like more automation within the system. Currently, Jean has to individually input data for each flight to view results such as delay metrics. She also is not automatically notified of communication updates and visual problem spots on the map. To help Jean determine the best traffic management initiative to implement, we've designed an automation feature that provides the ability to toggle between recommended initiatives, compare data, and determine the best initiative to implement. Each initiative contains vital information such as the TMI type, the start and end time, and the average and maximum delay. This information helps Jean to compare initiatives that cater to her situational needs using playbook routes and helps to minimize human error. Another feature labeled Smart Messages helps Jean and other traffic managers automatically share traffic management initiatives to relevant facilities and understand and view data corresponding with requests. We plan to also implement an automated plan, execute, review, train, and improve, or PERDI plan feature. This automation allows Jean to view alerts associated within her upcoming PERDI plan and reduces her research and development time when forming a plan.
Some other problems that Jean faces stem from the following modern UI conventions, or a lack of the following. just-in-time feedback, which is the idea that after finishing a task, the program automatically helps Gene know what the next thing to do is. Also, a lack of strong hierarchy. As you can see here to the right, this is a screenshot of the current system where a lack of one primary visual element makes it kind of difficult to know what to look at. It doesn't draw the user's eyes to something specifically. And also just overall overwhelming, as we've talked about before, is a problem for Gene. So we came up with many ways of implementing these things into our program, and here are a few examples. So at TMI Editor, as you can see, once Gene clicks on an alert area, the TMI Editor automatically pops up. It's a way of using just-in-time feedback. Likewise, as you can see the TMI monitor, everything reads from left to right and from top to bottom, which is a very conventional way of using user interface design so that Gene is guided through. Another example is our notifications panel. As you can see, the unread messages here, there's a weather alert and a new advisory that was posted, are right at the top and in a color that draws Gene's eyes to those things. So she knows that those are things she has to deal with. Now our team lead, we're going to turn it over to him, and he's going to give us a demonstration of what this might look like for Gene as she's completing some of the tasks in our project.
Thanks, Adam. To give you an idea, we're going to check on some updated advisories, create a space to view some details and data, and then we're going to look at the PERDI plan, compare some advisories and initiatives, and then implement those. Let me switch over. Okay, here we are on our home screen. As you can see, we tried to implement a very simple, minimalistic style so as to not distract from the data being conveyed. We also have this accent color, and it can be viewed, hold on, let me hide this, in either dark or light mode. On the left, we have the notifications panel, where Gene gets a look at some of the things that are happening in the NAS. She can mark them as read or dive in for a few more details. In the top, we have an action list. This is related to the PERDI plan. We see for today that she has to look at some upcoming events across the United States that require her attention. The views at the bottom contain her spaces. She can create different arrangements of panels ranging from different spaces across the United States to help see the information that she's interested in. And on the right, we have the advisories. We can click on the current operations plan, which is shown here in its long text format. And it's also been split up into individual pieces so she can get an idea of what's happening. For example, right now, there's an airport closure in Las Vegas. Let's create a new space. Here we can see the map on the right side, a NAS monitor in the top left, and some drafted TMIs. We can go into the filters to adjust what information is shown on the map, such as weather, regions, flow evaluation areas, and airports. We can also create an FEA super quickly up here. We can choose the color, draw it across Florida, and here we are able to put in the filters such as altitude, the time that it's active, and other advanced filters. With that created, let's adjust this space a little. Maybe Gene needs to get a different view of things. I can click up on the tab and edit layouts, which brings me into the space creator view. I can adjust the panels that are shown, change up what information I'm seeing, and even change the number of panels. I can bring it down to just one, have it split across half of the screen, or use all 4 quadrants. We'll stick there. In this view, I have a map in the top right corner showing active flights, a ton of mini FSM bar graphs on the bottom right so I can see all the information I need to, and 2 full-size bar graphs. With this information readily available, Gene can refer back to this tab whenever she needs to. Let's go back home and look at our PERDI plan. Firstly, it brings us to an overview of the whole United States. Problem areas have been identified and shown to me on the map with these red icons. Let's take a look at Jacksonville. I can click there and it brings me straight to the problem area, with the red region highlighted being the inclement weather. It says intense rain is expected to occur between 1100 Zulu and 1400. So I know the situation and what I need to do to take care of it. And the system has already started recommending things that I can do to solve this problem. Different flow evaluation areas have been identified around this problem area, and I've been given some initiatives that I could consider. It also brings up the bar graph so I can see what the traffic and demand are looking like at this time and in the future. Let's say initiative 1 seems appealing to me. I'm going to move in and edit this TMI further. I can adjust the program rate, the scope, and what FCA it's attached to. And when I feel good with the parameters, I'll run the model. Now it gives me some delay metrics, some flight metrics, and I can compare how this initiative would adjust and impact this particular situation. We also saw a benefit to comparing multiple models. So let's say that I want to try a different solution. I can save this one to drafts, and now it appears in the left sidebar. After creating a few drafts and models, I can go back and compare them. On this screen, I have 3 models that I'm comparing, the blue, purple, and orange. They're shown together on the bar graph so I can make an educated decision about which one I should implement. I can also toggle through to see the different metrics that they are yielding according to the model. If I'm satisfied with model 1, then I select it in the sidebar and click Implement Selected TMIs, and that sends off the PERDI plan to the relevant facilities. So now, the Jacksonville facility has just received a message including all that information that we were just seeing. Looks like we just got a message from Salt Lake City Airport. They're requesting a change in a TMI, and this is an example of smart messaging, like we mentioned earlier. We get an idea of their situation and also the context surrounding it. We can see their map, a bar graph of their area, and the metrics that they were using to make their decision. I can go and edit the TMI further, make some comments, and even request a call with them to discuss it further. If everything looks good to me, then I'll just click Approve. All right, that's all for the demonstration. I'll hand it back to Claire.
Thanks, Garrett. Overall, we're just really grateful for this opportunity to explore this issue and utilize and hone our design skills. And we hope that our proposed solutions demonstrate a more leveraged modern design, consolidate applications and features, improve flow with relevant information, and reduce distracting elements from the interface. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for our judging panel?
I'll go first. So you talked about in the messages view about having relevant data pass through, and then you also had the notifications, kind of that drop down list on the left. And so I had 2 questions. One is for those messages, when you mentioned that relevant data, who decides what's relevant? Like how are those decided, and can they be adaptable based on what's going on? Certain messages may be more applicable in certain scenarios to certain users. And then same for notifications. Is there a way to filter? I see advisories and alerts. Is there a way to filter on like basically importance, or again just by the type of like the type of severity of that message coming through, or is it all just kind of filtering there and you can really only filter based on the advisories and alerts? So it's just how do we get pertinent information to the user in a timely fashion and ignore the quote noise and allow them to do that.
Yeah, let me go into here first. The idea with relevant data is that the information we were using to build the initiative, such as the bar graph, the metrics that we ran, that is included in the message. That would be the relevant data that's included. However, maybe it would also be helpful to include other attachments onto messages, but we didn't explore that in our prototype. And yes, in our notifications, we don't have a priority system implemented, but that is a good consideration to make, especially considering some are more high importance than others, like a new advisory might be more important than a simple message between facilities. So in our current iteration, we don't have that, but thank you for that feedback.
Can you elaborate on what drove your decision to go with something that is a single monitor centric? And how do you see, if the user is working a problem, but also concurrently wants to monitor some number of situations, how you see them accomplishing that in your kind of single monitor centric approach?
Yeah, so we recognize that many traffic managers have many different workspace setups, many different types of monitors. And so we made our system in mind of that. We wanted it all to possibly be done on one monitor, and that's why we really heavily focused. We spent a lot of time on the system architecture and reworking it, and our final solution that we came with was that the having tabs of situations where if you're looking at something new, you can add a tab and toggle between that through your day. That was, in our mind, the best way to go about this, because our idea after that is if you want to use more monitors, if you have more monitors available, you just drag that tab to an additional monitor. So then you can have so many different situations up at the same time, but it also gives you the flexibility if you don't have multiple monitors and you need to work in a very limited workspace, you can just pull this up on your computer and have the same functionality as someone with whatever 10 plus monitors.
And one last question. Do you see this as a desktop application, or do you see this living in a browser?
We design with the desktop in mind. At least for me, I can't speak for the rest of the team. I've been very made aware of how cool like web applications could be. But I think that speaks to how well we designed the system, because now I'm realizing that this is something that could easily be pulled up on a laptop on a single display if we wanted it to, if we designed it for web. So this was designed in with desktop in mind as a desktop application, but I think it could very easily be transferred to the web.
Good job, guys. I really like the overall kind of look and feel, the colors selection, and very clean, and the dark and light being similar yet exactly what you need for darker light. I'm also really interested in the focus spaces. So the list under your options there, those are saved layouts that you've already configured, and you can save them, and now with a click you can bring that up and it'll open a new tab with exactly what you had laid out there, I assume.
Yeah. Yes.
That was built kind of based off of other similar softwares like in the creative world, like Photoshop, Illustrator, where you can save your default workspaces. And so we wanted that kind of functionality within ours, because we know that traffic managers have their individual preferences, and we wanted it to be easy for them to open up their saved templates.
And I did have a question about so you decided to go with a set of kind of structured layouts that they can choose from. And it sounds like once they pick a layout, so if they pick the one that has the 4 quadrants, that's how the information is displayed. It didn't look like you could dynamically like resize or move them around.
No. When you pick a layout, it's that layout, but the user gets to pick which panels go in each one. So if it's 4, they can decide, 4 bar graphs or maybe 2 maps, depending on the situation that they're monitoring or creating.
Got it.
And
So was that a conscious decision that you wanted to have something that wasn't dynamically resizable, for example? Or what are the benefits maybe of this approach versus a more dynamically evolving one?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually did have extensive discussions about how much customizability and flexibility should we give the user. On the one hand, we wanted to empower the user to feel that they could establish the space that they could need, but we also thought of the development side of how establishing a more rigid structure would be more simple to develop and also to use between different people. If it's so customized to the fact that nobody else can understand how your workspace works, then it's not super helpful in a collaborative environment such as traffic management. So those were some of our thoughts going into that.
Yeah, to add on to that, we really thought of collaboration, like he said, with how we set it up. And if you're sharing a screen, and it's customizable to an extent, but not overly customizable, it's more easily to share your work with another individual. as opposed to a massively customized interface.
That's on the note on sharing your work. The very strong feature is the ability to compare models side by side. And there's been a sensitivity around what that looks like, because on our current model of TFMS, the concern is that we get into these dueling model battles and we're not necessarily getting to what the best TMI is. So the question for clarification, once we are modeling TMI side by side and seeing the product that provides the best efficiency, that information is also shareable across so everyone else can see the same picture, or how does that all play out in the workflow?
Yes, we would ideally be able to share the different comparisons, especially among those that are having to make decisions. I don't think we have that prototyped out here in our iteration currently, but yes, the idea is similar to smart messaging. They would be able to see the map, the metrics, and the bar graph that they used to come to the decision that they've made. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I realize it's a complicated question. We could talk about modeling in itself for 30 minutes. But that's really, the core of it is successful collaboration requires everyone having the common picture. And so modeling solutions and providing the common picture is a new horizon that I see with this capability. So it's very interesting, and I'll give you more questions about modeling later.
Thank you.
Team, thank you. I like a number of things that I wanted to give you kudos on. I'm glad, first of all, that this gave you an opportunity to visit. You mentioned Provo Tower and Salt Lake Tracon and Center. That I trust was really helpful and probably gave you a great picture of a lot of what goes on. So that was fun. And I love, it spoke to my heart that you used the signal to noise ratio description. So thank you for doing that. I think that's a really helpful way to describe things. And interesting, just the way you structured it. I thought it was interesting that you flashed side by side. This is what the old looks like. Here's how we propose to address it. Just interesting approach to it. I wanted to ask you about the icons there, the red icon that I see, which I also found to be interesting approach. And so you showed, I think in the larger map, several different icons that signify different things. Is that right? To indicate events to draw the manager's attention?
In the overview, yeah.
But so they're represented by different icons, but if you drill to it like you did in South Florida, they look similar in that red polygon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
so the icon is what differentiates those things. Is that right? Do I understand correctly?
Yes, I think the idea here is on the left, we have all of those icons listed out. So now we've selected that Jacksonville scenario, which is inclement weather shown in that icon. And this is just the general alert being shown.
Okay.
But I can understand your confusion.
That's fine. I was trying to clarify. It was a relatively simple question, I guess. Yeah, that is the distinguishing factor between those different events is the icon on it. Yeah.
But it's not the only way, because those icons on the full map, that's pretty much showing the Purdy plan map view, which is not, what we're used to. But you can also see the Purdy plan on the home screen. So it's just a different way of looking at the Purdy plan, pretty much.
Okay. And sorry, one follow-on, not related, but you mentioned that you have a light mode on here. Did you mean that shows the entire thing? The entire display moves to light mode?
Yes. Okay. So sorry to blind you. Yeah, we did a few iterations in light mode. The majority of our prototype was done in dark mode, so we just wanted to be able to show off that capability does exist. Yeah. So the map would also be in light mode. All the icons and text are adjusted as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question. So we are using a limited number of colors, which I like, because you really should set it aside for special occasions only, right? But I did notice on the other display you just had up is if there's an alert, you color that red, and red normally means there's badness going on. I did notice that on the left panel, you used orange, more like a warning. What happens once a traffic manager actually is in the process of resolving it? So did you think about what kind of feedback that you're going to give so that when all the traffic managers are looking at that same issue, that they see that somebody actually is already addressing it? And at some point, it may actually go green because now the problem is solved. So have you thought about how that might work?
No, we don't have a specific color for when something is being worked on, but as Jackson mentioned, when something is being modeled, it's always purple. So I imagine if you were to send off modeling results to someone else, they would show up as purple as well. But other colors could be used for other things. That's something we could implement further along.
Yeah, we paid a lot of attention to our use of color, as you noted, and that's a good suggestion about what to think about for the future. And we definitely would put a lot of thought into coming up with a way to display those things. Another thing we thought about is just like how to have other indicators aside from color for accessibility purposes, so that users can really signify actions and buttons in the system. And so that's we paid a lot of thought to that, and moving forward with this project, we would continue to pay a lot of thought to that. So.
Do we have further questions from the judging panel?
So to echo Matt's point earlier about talking with different types of air traffic control facilities, I'll commend you on that as well. Did you guys encounter any challenges when going through some of your design decisions about something that you thought one facility would benefit, but then another, they might want something different? Like, any challenges or things you overcame, or any attention to certain things that different facilities may have different wants and needs in terms of like UI?
I can start with me. I thought it was very interesting touring the different facilities, just noticing the different systems that they use, because when we went to our local air traffic control tower in Provo, we expected to see something like TFMS, but they don't use that. So they were using like a whiteboard with like plastic pieces on it and mapping things out and printing out pieces of paper. And so it was just interesting to see different workflows and how it works across the board. And so, I mean, that was just interesting to note for me. Another difficulty that we had was trying to test this. We encountered a lot of people who said that they couldn't test it because of their association with the FAA for whatever reason. So, we made our most diligent efforts to just go out and talk and at least describe it verbally and meet with Kurt. So those are some of the challenges that we came across. And that's what comes to the top of my mind.
Another example that I'm thinking of is, since we visited the ZLC center, we were kind of center-minded, like what would they want at a center for a while. And our flight schedule monitor bar graphs are an example of something we did to kind of like not be center-minded, because we realized at the ZLC that they don't, their NAS monitor and their FSM bar graphs, they don't monitor huge areas and they're not super important to them. But we realized that maybe at the command center here in DC, that might be more important. So we kind of went out of our way to try to make that work for both things, even though we had never visited the command center.
Yeah, and overall, just seeing how these different systems work and how different positions interact with this different systems, it just, maybe I can't point to it specifically now, but I feel like all these views and experiences that we were able to have really helped us with the final design, just making it as simple to use and as flexible as possible for whatever job you're doing within the airspace.
One more on something that you mentioned, but I felt it was kind of in passing here, and I thought you went into more detail about it on your video, was the slider bar. You mentioned things that are in the future are in purple. Can you go back to the slider bar and how you envision that working? I think it was Adam, you might have said something about modeling, but I didn't follow all of it.
Yeah, so so as you can see the purple dot there, once you slide into the future, it gets outlined in vibrant purple. So that way the user can't possibly confuse, what's shown on the map with current time, because this is not current time. This is, 5 hours in the future. So it's kind of just a way of like visually showing.
And the bar there in the bottom is what would flash, you're saying?
Yes, because that's what, that's time. So you can see it's in purple right now. And likewise, if you were to do the same thing, it may be the bar graph, it would be outlined in vibrant purple. Anything that's modeled in the future, vibrant purple.
Okay.
To go a little further, because this weather event is something expected to happen, that's why the time scriber has jumped to the time that weather event is expected to happen. If I go back to our regular workspace, oh, sorry, I thought we had a time scriber there. But if you were just in present time, yeah, for example here, this is in present time, so this is not outlined in purple. Does that answer your question?
Any other comments or questions from the judging panel?
Actually, I just have a comment, and I am from a center, so I appreciate the simplistic layout. You don't know how long it takes me to make my quadrants the same exact size on a monitor. So I like everything. I like everything that you all did with the design and the layout and the colors.
Thank you.
Somebody will come back in and change your colors, and you're like, well, no, just leave. Let's have like maybe 5 or 6 colors that we use and nothing else.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's very rewarding for us to hear, I know, because we met so many times and had so many, discussions over this, and we just wanted to make, because the system itself is so complex and, the job is complex, why make the interface complex? Like, we wanted to make it as simple as possible to make the job as easy as possible.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. And we will go to our audience for additional questions during our Q&A session. Go ahead and raise your hand if you've got a question for the Brigham Young team. Questions?
Hi, my name is Tyler from the University of Michigan. I'm just curious, like, when you went into the command center, like, were you expecting to see whiteboards and everything, or did your jaws kind of drop? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so Adam and I were able to visit the Salt Lake Center, and yeah, the layout it was really funny going in because I've never been so excited to enter a government facility. But going through their workstations, it was really fascinating to see their setup. We weren't expecting whiteboards. We knew they were a bit more sophisticated, but seeing the huge monitors they have, the wide spread of windows all across, all the information that they're looking at, it was helpful for us to understand how they're using the software currently, and get a sense of how they set things up, especially because we saw them using different monitors more as just reference, like they just had them open so they could look at them at any time. Whereas we were envisioning previously more of an active relationship where they would always be going back and changing it. So those are some of the things I noticed.
Also, just to clarify, the whiteboard that Jackson talked about, we saw that in the ATC, I think I got that right, the tower. It was a tower at a local airport. So that was not at the center.
Yeah, that's my bad, sorry. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead and raise your hand.
So side note about the flight strips you saw, the FAA is actually trying to replace all those with electronics, so there's hope.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kerrigan from University of Miami. I was just going back to color choices. I noticed on the bar graphs in particular, there were some light colors, and I was just curious how that would translate to light mode versus dark mode, if there'd have to be any changes in colors, and how managers would know that those colors still represent the same things.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's something we can think about. We don't have an image of this in light mode, but this could potentially still work in light mode. Maybe it couldn't. But if we'd figure it out. Yeah.
Could you repeat the first part of your question again?
Oh, I was just curious if in light mode you would have to switch any of the colors, specifically like the light purples or the light whites or the light blues would become too much for users' eyes.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you said something else. I will add on though, with these linear bar graphs, as you can see, they only are showed in one color. And we purposely did that to kind of avoid like color clutter. So if you want to see, you know, the full flight situation with all the, you know, divided out bars, you make it big. But these little ones kind of just give you an idea of where demand is. But as far as light mode, no.
All right.
Hi, I'm John. Hi, I'm John. I'm from Cal State East Bay. Going on the color, yeah, I mean, I think one thing you would just do is reverse it. But I was going to ask in terms of like, which I think is really creative, is that you, right, like we're looking at these colors right here, and then anything that doesn't exceed the bar, right, isn't kind of highlighted at all. So like, I don't think anybody kind of came up with that idea. So how did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, you can take it.
It was a team effort. Everything was very teamed. I originally was the one that came up with, you know, solid bars, and then someone told me like, oh, you should make them have different color values so one stands out more. And then someone else was like, why don't we make one gray? So it kind of all just came together as a team effort.
It's all part of that signal to noise ratio, you know, paying attention to what is the most important piece of information relevant to the traffic manager at that time. And we thought, and after talking to traffic managers, like we learned that they're not really concerned about what's at adequate capacity or under capacity. They're trying to make initiatives based off of what's over capacity. So we wanted to highlight that in the system.
Thank you. Other questions from our audience? All right, Amy, do we have any questions on the live stream? No questions? All right, any other questions or comments from the judging panel?
So on this view, and this question's been bugging me, the greater than, less than signs on the map, what is the significance of those on this display? Is that connected directly to the filters?
Yeah, so those are meant to represent active flights. We wanted to come up with a different icon system rather than a tiny airplane. And so this was one of our explorations, showing flights as just an arrow. And then you can see, if you look closely, some of these have like a dot within them, and that's supposed to represent a different type of flight. So instead of relying purely on color or having a really descriptive icon of a literal airplane, we tried to minimize that. Again, focusing on signal to noise, making it a simple icon so they can easily glance at it and understand this flight is this type heading this direction.
And ideally, maybe this map wouldn't like show the state and city names, so it'd be easier to see.
Right, and I'm glad that I asked. That's very clever in the minimalistic approach. We all assume we know what airplanes look like, but may not be necessary to spell it out every single time, right? Yeah, thank you.
And ideally also, hopefully there's a symbiotic relationship between the map and the data. So when you click on active flight on the map, you can view what the flight is and where it's going and all the delay metrics and everything like that also.
Just for your consideration to think about, the bar graphs, I like it graying out when you're not over capacity. But when you take the bars that are over capacity and you boil them down to one color, to a very large degree, you're abstracting the problem. Okay, so now I know I'm over capacity, but is that active flights, projected flights? Because if it's all active flights, there's not a darn thing I can do about it, versus if some of them are still on the ground and some are in the air, So I mean, it's nice that it's simplified, but it is abstracting important information. So just think about whether you do want to go that way or not.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. Thank you. We actually thought about that a lot because we realize that it's very important to see the flight situations, right? How the bars. And it uses a principle called progressive disclosure. So you see it like this first, and it doesn't give you all the information. It just gives you like a very general idea. And then when you want to see the bars split out, that's when you attach it over here to make it bigger.
And I do think there is obviously a way to rework this if we spent more time on it to address what you're talking about. The principle is that we just wanted to, highlight the most important things. And I think you can still, have some of that principle and some of your solution if we spent more time working on it. So.
I'll ask, just because we have a few minutes left and it doesn't look like I see any more questions, I should ask, similar to something Melissa asked one of the other teams, I won't let you off the hook so quickly. Can each of you just tell us what you thought the most fun or rewarding part of this was? Or most interesting? Thanks, Melissa.
I'll go first. The clickable prototype, I think, is so cool because we were talking about this for months, right? And it took us, actually, we started designing pretty late in our process. So once like the design was actually coming together and you could like click on things and it would actually change things, it was so cool to see for me.
I love just working on a case study, a project this complex. We were talking about this at lunch, but like typically when you think of UX, you think of, like websites, apps, pretty looking consumer products. But this was a monster, and it was so complex, it's so hard, but so fun. And like working on something like this helped me discover like there's more to UX than just these, consumer products. And this is the type of thing I want to work on. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I think for me, I loved the challenge of trying to keep it functional, but also beautiful in a certain way. That's one of my favorite parts of UX design is trying to find that balance. And yeah, I don't know. It was a very, very fun project from the get-go. I think I went through a bell curve of like, I have no idea what I'm doing to I know exactly what I'm doing to I have no idea what I'm doing. And going through that process and learning through it has been really fascinating. I know so much more about air traffic control than I ever thought I would. So I'm really grateful for that.
I just love learning about the flow and the process of it all. It's something that I never thought I'd know either. And it's just super cool. And I totally empathize with traffic managers and I have a lot of respect for them. So, yeah.
Thank you for that question. I will open the floor up to anyone else who has any additional questions. We still have about 2 minutes, so you can just raise your hand if you've got any more, and I'll come on over.
Hello, I'm Joanna from the University of Miami. So I have a question about your choice of color for the call of action. It's orange, and I know that it's been discussed that there's 3 colors we to pay attention to. So red if there's any severity, like orange for any medium attention, and green for like lighter alerts. So can you walk me through your decision on choosing the color orange for your buttons or like your filters or any other icons?
Yeah, from the beginning of our design, I had used orange for more of like a brand choice because orange is neither red nor yellow nor green. It's not one of those cardinal colors. And it felt like we didn't want it to distract from those main ones. And so orange felt like a good place in between that can still draw attention, but not signify anything good or bad. If that makes sense.
Okay, any more? All righty. Thank you very much, Brigham Young.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to call up California State University, East Bay. We'll go ahead and get you set up. For our live stream, they will begin at 2:20.